You've come out openly with constructive criticism about American foreign policy, U.S. foreign policy. How come?
Because, and I was pretty public in uniform as well. So, this hasn't been, just some retired general speaking his mind now. Now that he's out of uniform, I was very adamant about what I believed we were facing around the world, not just in the Middle East with this scourge of Islamic terrorism and this thing we call, the Islamic State, but also some of the other major threats that our country is facing. And I really believe that we are applying 20th century tools to 21st century problems. And I would say that even in the tactical argument about this Iranian nuclear deal, people have made this a black and white issue. Either it's war or it's no deal, and that lacks imagination. There are many more options that we can consider to help this situation in the Middle East to settle it down a little bit, and one of which is actually to. I was pleased to see the president, I think, in the last 24 hours, start to push Iran to back out of the situation in Iraq, to let the Iraqis calm that situation down. So that's a good step by the President of the United States, and I'm glad that he did that, but he needs to do more. I think we need to do a lot more. And like I said, this is not a black and white issue, and we need to really expand our imagination on some of the options that are available, and I believe that we're not talking about.
How much of a priority do you feel that Americans ought to put foreign policy, should value foreign policy in planning the future of America beyond 2016?
Yeah, I think all Americans are going to be initially concerned about their own economic security and their own public safety and security. And I think that's just a natural thing for any human being, particularly Americans. And I see myself as a kid who grew up in a relatively small town, and I have a large number of brothers and sisters, so I know what they're concerned about. But I do believe, because of the globalization that has occurred in the world, the internationalization of the political systems and the economic systems that we are all a part of, we can't lose sight of what I believe we need is a real effective, long-term, sustained foreign policy that transcends just worrying about, whether or not we've killed a terrorist today or last night. People talk about counterterrorism as though it's our foreign policy. That's a very, very narrow component. It's a very tactical component. We need a much broader foreign policy that encompasses all the various threats that we face: economic, diplomatic, military, and I think that foreign policy and I think national security are going to play really big in this next election process for the next president of the United States.
How about Russia and China? People are thinking of Russia in terms of Gorbachev and perestroika, and this openness. Where are Russia and China on? Where should they be on Americans' minds?
Yeah, we ought to be very conscious, because they are they are part of everything that we do. So this resurgence of Russia, this sort of reinvigoration of President Putin and what we're seeing in East Europe is, it demands our time and it demands our respect. And we have to demonstrate strength and leadership against Russia. China is a different issue. China is really more of an economic issue, and we have to understand the economic conditions of the Asia-Pacific theater. The amount of energy flow that comes through that theater, the size of the populations. You have India and China. Just those two countries alone are equal to 1/3 of the population of the entire planet. So there's economic conditions on one hand, and on the other hand, it's really a military activity that demands us to reinvigorate the respect that we once had by Russia of us. And I don't think that President Putin, I don't think he respects us anymore. I don't think he respects the United States. He's clearly demonstrating that he does not.
Is America's democracy, you think, a guarantee in the future?
In terms of here in this country, I mean, I think I think that we have to pay very close attention to how we are taking shape as a society. I think that our system is still by far the best system in the world. It's very effective. We are an enlightened society. We still represent that sort of light on the hill for the rest of the world. There's still people lining up at our embassies around the world trying to get a visa to come here. So very, very positive example for the rest of the world. But we also have to remember that civilizations over the history of the world have declined. And we have to be very conscious of those conditions, those indicators, the criteria that we know of what caused other societies to decline. We have to pay very close attention to those kinds of things so we don't allow ourselves to get into a situation where our system declines. We can't afford that. In fact, that to me is probably one of the issues that I do think about a lot, and I do try to worry about us over a longer term than just what's the next election cycle. We have to think in terms of, certain people in this country have to really put their heads together and think about where do we want to be in 25 years, 50 years by the turn of this century. And I'll just finish by saying that I have a 3-year-old granddaughter who I believe will live. If people live longer than they typically do these days, she'll only be 88 years old in the 22nd century. I mean, so think about that. So to me, that's my vision, is I want my granddaughter to have a life better than what I have, and in order, 85 years from now. Okay, 85 years from now, that's the next century. That's not that far away. So we have to think in terms of those types of perspectives. And we can't think in terms of, what are we going to do from one election cycle or one debate to the next, or one Sunday talk show to the next Sunday talk show. And we tend to think in short-term strategic issues instead of long-term sustained strategic solutions.